Good to see you again on our channel. The long-suppressed views of Alex Van Halen against Michael Anthony, the controversial bassist whose position in the band was fraught with difficulties, have finally come out today. Unity and common goals were the springboards for Van Halen's adventure. Michael Anthony contributed significantly to the band's distinctive sound with his powerful background vocals and consistent bass lines. He contributed depth to songs like Running with the Devil and Panama with his harmonies and laid the groundwork for Eddie Van Halen's guitar mastery and Alex's booming drumming with his bass lines. However, the band's relationships began to fray as their celebrity increased. Alex Van Halen, who is very methodical and hardworking, sometimes clashed with Anthony, who tended to be more carefree. Alex became increasingly irritated by what he saw as the band's casual attitude toward its objective, while Anthony reveled in the benefits of rock celebrity. Alex saw music as a holy art form that Anthony had perfected. Sometimes it felt like a celebration. Tensions in the creative community started to boil over in the 1980s. The band's creative forces, Alex and Eddie Van Halen, were of the opinion that Anthony wasn't putting enough effort into writing songs. Each pitch and rhythm was fine-tuned to perfection by the brothers. There were times of annoyance and even open animosity during recording sessions since Anthony's laid-back attitude clashed with their compulsive motivation. Picture this. Alex would spend hours upon hours perfecting the drum beats, while Anthony would appear content to just wing it. Alex saw this disengagement as an affront to the band's principles. Resentment was slow to develop at first, but it soon became impossible to disregard. The band dynamic changed even more in 1985 when Sammy Hagar took over lead vocals from David Lee Roth in Van Halen. As pals, Hagar and Anthony frequently stood together in opposition to the Van Halen siblings. This further isolated Alex. In sharp contrast to Alex and Eddie's laser-like focus, Hagar and Anthony's friendship was full of jokes and shared indulgences. Because of this, Alex began to feel more and more estranged from the bassist, who had before been his ally. The atmosphere became one of us against them. The decision to replace Michael Anthony with Wolfgang Van Halen, who was Eddie's teenage son, was the last straw in 2006, when the Van Halen brothers made the controversial move. Alex saw this as more than just a family decision. It was an opportunity to take charge of the band's future again. Many fans were outraged that the brothers had demoted Anthony, whose backup vocals had grown as famous as the band's guitar solos, and the decision sent shockwaves through the fan base. Alex, though, felt the choice was warranted. Because of his alliance with Hagar and his disengagement from the band's creative process, Anthony was considered replaceable in Alex's view. But it was a rejection that hit Anthony close to home, and it broke the bridge that had been built up between him and the Van Halen brothers. Problems with the Van Halen brothers weren't the only ones Anthony had to deal with. Though it provided him solace, his friendship with Sammy Hagar also had its fair share of difficulties. Chicken Foot was one of the many cooperative ventures between the two, and critics wondered if Anthony wasn't just trying to cash in on Hagar's fame by drawing analogies to Van Halen. These remarks hurt because they confirmed what everyone already knew, that Anthony's prime was past. Many in the media and among Van Halen's fanbase felt that Anthony didn't contribute nearly enough to the band's songwriting. Although his live performances were well received, many doubted his involvement in the band's songwriting. This brought up bad memories of the band's dismissive attitude toward Anthony, who had his talents eclipsed by the Van Halen brothers' inflated personalities. A guy caught in the midst of expectations, demands, and sacrifices, Michael Anthony's life offstage depicted a similar picture. Even though it was thrilling, fame had a heavy price, and Anthony suffered it mostly at home. He became estranged from his family as a result of the hedonistic lifestyle that is characteristic of rock stars, which includes constant touring and late-night performances. Envision a man caught between his roles as a loyal spouse and parent who wants stability in his life, and a rock star who is supposed to live a life of excess and disorder. Anthony regularly struggled with guilt over missing out on important family moments while managing the relentless demands of Van Halen, a clear sign of the strain that this dual existence was putting on him. Rather than focusing just on his music, Anthony found that the spotlight mirrored his successes and his weaknesses. Since the media was eager to immortalize Eddie and Alex Van Halen's flamboyant personalities, they frequently portrayed Anthony as an underappreciated supporting actor. His followers loved him for his friendly, laid-back personality, but critics painted him as a cynic. Instead of being viewed as an ardent virtuoso or an ambitious mastermind behind Van Halen's success, he was viewed as the steady bassist, the one who kept the beat steady without causing a stir. Envision yourself as the most vulnerable member of a band that embodied revolutionary and avant-garde musical ideas. Anthony was trapped by this stereotype even though he made indisputable accomplishments. Although his soaring harmonies were a key part of Van Halen's sound, critics generally disregarded them in their meticulous analysis of his involvement in the band. Although the fireworks of Eddie's guitar and the thunder of Alex's drumming often overwhelmed his vocal, which enhanced the band's melodies, it was his bass lines that really held the music together. But Anthony's problems with how the public saw him persisted even after he left Van Halen. Even when Eddie embarked on a prosperous career after Van Halen, the specter of those previous critiques followed. The specter of his ex-bandmates hung heavy. It was frequently questioned by both fans and media if Anthony's subsequent achievements were indeed his own or just a continuation of Van Halen's legacy. The praise he received was mixed with uncertainty and the pain of being underappreciated, making it bittersweet. Anthony bore the burden of these impressions beneath his signature smile and easygoing charisma. He put on a cheerful front to the world, but the pain of being underappreciated as a musician and a person never completely healed. Navigating the difficulties of celebrity and family, he tirelessly sought to show his worth in a world that was fast to judge but slow to recognize, leading him on a journey of quiet resilience. Looking back on his time with Michael Anthony, Alex Van Halen paints a picture of a collaboration characterized by musical harmony and interpersonal strife. Anthony laid the groundwork for the distinctive Van Halen sound with his steady bass lines and soaring harmonies, which propelled the band to superstardom. But the resentment that built up behind the scenes is inseparable from their contributions, in Alex's view. Disagreement arose not just from differing musical tastes, but also from a more fundamental conflict between goals and actual results, between potential and actual disappointment. Put yourself in the shoes of a musician whose job it was to play in a band where every note was carefully judged and where a slip-up could ruin years of practice. As difficult as it was to work with Anthony, Alex knew that in order to keep Van Halen at the top of their rock game, sacrifices would be necessary. While Anthony's laid-back demeanor helped alleviate tension, it frequently contrasted with Alex's dogged pursuit of perfection. The fault lines in their interaction were exposed as what started as a shared vision for greatness turned into a source of conflict. The impression Michael Anthony leaves behind is multi-faceted. His admirers hold him in high esteem for his humble charisma and indisputable artistic impact. But his story is a complicated one, marked by both victory and tragedy. His harmonies became instantly recognizable as Van Halen's sound, but the reality of life behind the scenes revealed a different tale, one of feuds, exclusion, and occasions when he felt his role in the band was decreased. Anthony had to deal with the intensely emotional as well as professional challenges he had when performing with Van Halen, as the band was characterized by egotistical and ambitious members. The melancholy reality that accompanies Anthony's famous legacy is that being a rock and roll icon isn't all about the money. It's also about the emotional toll it takes. All the sacrifices made in the never-ending quest for fame are highlighted in his story, which serves as a cautionary tale about the delicate balance between friendship and rivalry. As Van Halen's incredible career comes to a close, Anthony's narrative serves as an inspiration for perseverance. In spite of everything that happened, The protagonist never wavered in his dedication to his music or the people who loved it. Much like the band's history, his legacy is a complex web of ups and downs, triumphs and tragedies. The personal toll of living the rock and roll dream and the band's irrefutable accomplishments.